It started with a number that didn't add up. Just a few cents off in a column no one else cared to check. I remember thinking it was nothing, a rounding mistake, a misplaced decimal, but numbers don't lie. People do. Every time I corrected one entry, two more appeared, like a thread pulling from the edge of a perfect suit. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. Vanguard Developments was too big, too respected, too polished to make these kinds of errors. Still, something about those transfers felt deliberate. Why were funds from a local housing project moving through a shipping company registered in Belize? Why were entire ledgers being replaced overnight? The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. Someone had built a maze, and every corridor led somewhere they didn't want me to go. Would you risk everything for the truth? Would you keep quiet if silence paid your bills? Or would you keep digging, even when you know the hole might bury you? By morning, the system had changed. The file I'd marked was gone. Entire folders had been renamed. Like someone wiping away fingerprints, I called it. And they said it must have been routine maintenance. Funny. The maintenance only touched my records. I felt a chill that didn't come from the air conditioning. Someone knew I was looking. I told Michael, but he looked terrified. Not surprised. That was the first sign. The fear in his voice wasn't for me. It was for himself. He said, "Emma, some numbers aren't meant to balance. Let it go." But I couldn't. Once you see a lie, you can't unsee it. I went to Daniel Holt, hoping he'd tell me there was an explanation. He smiled like he already knew what I was going to say. "We appreciate your diligence," he said, his voice smooth like polished marble. But behind that smile was something else. Calculation. He didn't ask which file or what I'd seen. He just said, "Some things are above your clearance." It wasn't a warning. It was ownership. For the first time, I realized the company wasn't protecting data. It was protecting itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his tone. Calm, dismissive, certain. Like he'd seen this 100 times before. I poured myself coffee and opened my laptop again. There it was. A pattern I hadn't noticed before. The offshore accounts weren't random. They were synchronized, always activated within minutes of each quarterly report submission. This wasn't a glitch. It was a system. The next morning, I walked into work pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. My keycard beeped red at the server room door. My access was revoked. My inbox was empty. Even my printer queue was locked. Someone had cut me out. That's when I realized the company didn't need to fire you to silence you. It just had to erase you. The day after my access was revoked, I used a backup copy I'd secretly saved on an old flash drive. My heart was pounding. Every folder I opened revealed more. Coded transfers, fake vendor names, ghost employees. Each number told a story of theft disguised as precision. It wasn't just internal fraud. These accounts were feeding money into foreign shell companies, millions moving in silence. The company's pristine reputation was nothing more than a polished lie. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was an operation. I went looking for the fake vendors. Coral Imports, Crestline Supplies, Bayview Logistics. None of them existed. But each address traced back to the same law firm, Holt and Mason Associates. Daniel Holt's name wasn't on the books, but his signature was everywhere. Payments approved by him, coded through subsidiaries, buried beneath audit jargon. He built the system, then buried it in plain sight. Every time I uncovered another link, I could almost hear his voice in my head. "Some things are above your clearance." I called Michael again. He didn't answer. When he finally met me, it wasn't at the office. It was in an empty parking garage. He looked older, exhausted, like he hadn't slept. "Emma," he said, "stop digging." I asked him what he knew. He looked away. "You think you're the first one who noticed? That hit me like a punch. How many others had seen this? How many had stayed silent, because silence was safer. That night, I couldn't shake his words. You're not the first. I started searching for former employees, old accountants, auditors who'd left suddenly. Some profiles were deleted, others disconnected. A few were listed as deceased. Then I found one name that wasn't gone. Julia Tran, an investigative journalist who once wrote about corporate fraud at Vanguard's overseas branch. Maybe she knew what I was uncovering. Maybe she'd survived what the others hadn't. Or the next morning, I emailed Julia using a burner account. I didn't expect a reply, but within minutes my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. I've been waiting for someone inside to reach out. Meet me tonight. My hands trembled. I realized then that I wasn't just exposing fraud. I was walking into something far more dangerous, something that had been waiting for me all along. Julia was younger than I expected. Sharp, fast, and already suspicious of me. She didn't waste time with introductions. You're from Vanguard, she said. I've been waiting for this call for 2 years. We met in a quiet cafe by the river. I slid a flash drive across the table. She didn't even look at it before asking. Do you have backups? I nodded. Good, she said. You'll need them when they come after you. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about fraud. It was about survival. I thought paranoia was something that happened to other people, but after that night, I started noticing things. A black sedan parked across the street, the same man on the train, the same footsteps behind me when I left the office. When I told Michael, he refused to meet in person. You shouldn't have talked to her, he whispered over the phone. They monitor everything. Then the line went dead. I tried calling back, but his number was disconnected. Just like that, gone. The next morning, security escorted me from the building. They said my clearance was under review. No explanation, no warning, just 2 guards and silence. As I packed my things, I noticed my computer was already logged into by Admin 2. They were cleaning me out. I walked out of Vanguard for what I thought would be the last time, holding a box of files they didn't bother to check. But inside, hidden beneath old pay slips, was the drive, the one they didn't know existed. Julia met me again that night. She'd found something. Offshore accounts linked not just to Holt, but to a politician funding public contracts. This goes higher than your CFO, she said. These aren't just business crimes. This is money laundering on a national scale. I felt my pulse in my throat. If we publish this, they'll come after us both, I said. She smiled faintly. They already are. The next morning, I found a letter slipped under my door. No name, no signature, just one line. Stop digging, or we'll bury you. I stared at it for a long time, the paper trembling in my hands. That's when I understood what Michael meant. People don't just disappear. They get erased from systems, from stories, from memory. And I was next in line. I went back to Vanguard one last time. The guards tried to stop me, but I walked straight to Holt's office. He was calm, too calm, when I stormed in. I threw the printed bank transfers on his desk. You knew, I said. He didn't even flinch. You've been busy, he replied, adjusting his cufflinks. Do you have any idea what you've done? He wasn't talking about the company. He was talking about me. He turned the papers around slowly, scanning them like they were nothing. Then he smiled. The kind of smile that hides knives. Emma, do you really think the people funding this company care about a few numbers? I told him I had copies. He nodded. So do we. When I left his office, security was already waiting. My access badge was deactivated, my email wiped, and my photo removed from the company directory. By the time I reached the elevator, I was already gone. They called it data theft. The official memo went out that afternoon. My name listed under internal investigation. Colleagues stopped replying to messages. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with HR calls. They didn't accuse me to my face. They didn't have to. In one day, I became the enemy of a company I had protected for years. My reputation wasn't stolen. It was rewritten. That night, Julia came over. She found me sitting in the dark. "They've started the smear campaign," she said quietly. She placed her recorder on the table. "If we publish now, they'll know it's you." I looked at her. The only person still willing to be near me. "Then let them know," I said. "Let them know what they built." She nodded, eyes heavy with something between respect and fear. "Once we do this, there's no going back." The next morning, a man from HR came to my door with a document. "Resignation agreement," he called it. "Sign it and we forget everything." I looked at the empty signature line, the company logo embossed at the top. Everything I'd built, the years, the late nights, the trust, all reduced to a few paragraphs of legal silence. I didn't sign. I closed the door, locked it, and realized, for the first time in my life, I was truly free and completely alone. Julia and I met in her newsroom, the walls covered with headlines and photos pinned in frantic patterns. She'd been chasing Vanguard for years but never had proof. Until now. I handed her my flash drive. "This is everything. Transfers, shell companies, signatures." She plugged it in, scanned through the files, and whispered, "You just handed me the biggest corporate scandal of the decade." For a second, I felt relief. Then fear, because now it wasn't just my secret anymore. We spent nights connecting the dots. Fake contracts, offshore routes, political donations disguised as community grants. Julia's energy was relentless. Mine came from fear. Every click on her keyboard felt like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. "Once this goes live," she said, "there's no way back." I nodded. That's the point. But part of me wondered if truth was enough to fight something this big. Then the threats started again. Emails from unknown accounts. Blank messages with attachments I didn't dare open. A car followed me home. Same one every night. Julia told me to stay somewhere safe. But where does a person go when the people chasing you own everything? I stopped sleeping. Every sound felt like a warning. Every silence felt worse, but the story had to go on. Before they found a way to bury it, Julia found the final piece. A confidential memo linking Holt to a network of offshore trusts managed by a senator's cousin. "This is it," she said. "This connects everything." We stared at the screen in silence. It was the kind of proof that topples careers, destroys fortunes, rewrites history. I felt a strange calm wash over me. Fear turned into purpose. "They built an empire on stolen trust," I said. "Let's burn it down." We released the report at midnight. By morning, it was everywhere. Headlines, broadcasts, social feeds. Vanguard developments tied to global money laundering. Within hours, the company's stock plummeted. Holt disappeared from public view. The government launched an inquiry. And me? My phone never stopped ringing. Reporters, lawyers, threats. Julia smiled at the chaos. "You did it," she said. But I knew better. The story wasn't over. It was only beginning. When the story broke, the world exploded overnight. Politicians called for investigations. Analysts filled the airwaves. And in the center of it all, me. Julia tried to keep my name out of it, but the leaks moved faster than truth. Within hours, someone posted my employee ID, my home address, even my family's photos. The world wanted a hero. The company needed a villain. I became both. Reporters camped outside my building. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. Every news channel called me, the accountant who brought down a corporation, but no one mentioned what it cost. Vanguard's lawyers called me unstable. Online trolls called me worse. My phone was full of messages, some from strangers thanking me, others promising to destroy me. The truth doesn't just set you free. Sometimes it hunts you down. Daniel Holt resurfaced on television 2 days later. Smooth, confident, composed. He denied everything, accused me of misinterpreting confidential financial data. I watched from Julia's apartment as he smiled for the cameras. "We are cooperating fully," he said. Unfortunately, a disgruntled former employee chose to violate her oath of confidentiality. And that's when I understood. He wasn't trying to clear his name. He was rewriting mine. Julia didn't sleep. She spent every night publishing more evidence. Transfers, emails, board minutes. For every denial Holt made, she had a document that proved him wrong. But the pressure was building. Our inboxes filled with legal threats. Her editor received anonymous calls. Someone broke into her car and stole her laptop. We both knew what that meant. They weren't fighting to protect the truth. They were fighting to erase it. Every time. That night, my phone buzzed again. A new number, a single sentence. "You shouldn't have trusted her." I froze. Julia looked up. "What is it?" she asked. I showed her the message, and for a split second, I saw doubt in her eyes. They weren't just coming after us. They were trying to turn us against each other. The war wasn't about truth anymore. It was about control. The subpoenas arrived at dawn. Vanguard's headquarters raided. Files seized. Holt and Kane under investigation. My testimony was requested for the grand jury. I should felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. The truth had cost more than I'd ever imagined. Friends gone, family distant, fear constant. Julia called it victory. I called it survival. Still, I knew I had to see it through. If I stopped now, everything I'd lost would mean nothing. Inside the courtroom, the air felt heavy. Too quiet, too controlled. Holt sat across the room, polished and calm as ever, his eyes meeting mine only once. When they swore me in, my hands trembled. But the moment I started speaking, the fear broke. I told them everything. The missing files, the offshore accounts, the threats. Every word felt like tearing open an old wound, but it was the only way to make it heal. After I testified, Julia waited outside the courthouse. "You did it," she said softly. But there was no joy in her eyes, just exhaustion. Within days, the arrest started. Bank accounts frozen. News outlets filled with confessions, denials, counter-accusations. Vanguard's empire was falling apart. Yet somehow, Holt was still free on bail. Watching interviews of him smiling on TV made my stomach turn. Some people don't fear justice. They just learn how to survive it. Weeks passed. The investigation widened. Laws changed. I became a symbol I never wanted to be. The accountant who exposed corruption. But behind the headlines, I was just a person trying to remember who I used to be before all this began. Sometimes I caught myself staring at spreadsheets again, as if numbers could still tell me something honest. But truth, once revealed, never goes back to sleep. I'd pulled the thread and unraveled everything. 1 year later, I moved near the ocean. No cameras, no interviews, no more secrets. Some nights I sit on the sand, listening to the waves and wondering if it was worth it. The silence, the exile, the truth. People still send me letters. Some thanking me, others blaming me. I don't answer them anymore. The truth doesn't belong to me now. It belongs to everyone. And that, maybe, is enough.